security problems with respect to the electric grid, and security problems with respect to oil. Is there anything that we can do that can help with those? Well, one thing that we can do is start to move toward electrification of transportation. It won't come extremely fast because electric or partly electric cars, such as plug-in hybrids, are only going to be available as new vehicles, and it takes them some time to penetrate the market. But I drive a Chevy Volt and I drive a Prius that's been changed to be a plug-in, that is to have get about 20 miles worth of driving all electric from plugging it in overnight before it becomes just a regular Prius and gets regular Prius mileage. The Chevy Volt similarly, but gets more mileage all electric, 40 plus miles before it becomes, but it has to use liquid fuel. But you know, 3/4 of the cars in the country go less than 40 miles a day. So if you have even a modest amount of electric capacity in your car, 3 days out of 4, you're an all-electric car. 4th day, you may need, on an average, to take a much longer trip, and so you're going to be using liquid fuel. In the first instance, probably gasoline, but before too many years are up, maybe not only ethanol, but methanol, some made from natural gas, some made from other substances. There's a lot of work going on for alternative fuels. And a car that runs half to 2/3 to 3/4 of the days it operates on electricity, and then most of the rest of the time on methanol made from natural gas or ethanol from corn or from Brazil, from sugarcane, could make a huge, huge dent in our use of oil. Now, some of those products that can make liquid fuel can be grown locally. Some of them, like natural gas, may be more distributed throughout the United States than we realized a couple or 3 years ago because of the discovery of gas shale and hydrofracturing. But thirdly, what enables all this really is electricity, moving toward the partial electrification of transportation. If that electricity comes over long-range transmission lines and comes only as a result of operating in the electric grid we have now, our cars are no more resilient in their fueling than they are now, relying on foreign oil, and the few electric vehicles that are out there relying on electricity from the big transmission system that has the disadvantages I described. But if our electricity is locally generated, increasingly locally generated from solar, and it's helped by improved batteries so that it can be stored to be used at night, and I think probably in some cases assisted by locally produced natural gas. But solar is at the heart of this. And if we begin to deploy solar in adequate degree, we can have a much more resilient electric system, and we can begin to use some of that electricity as transportation electrifies also to power our vehicles. Now, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, is an organization of the developed countries of the world. It's us, Western Europe, Canada, Australia, Japan, the prosperous countries of the world, had a little over 1 billion people. The United States is 25% of the population of the advanced developed countries. But we are only 8% of the demand for photovoltaics to produce solar. Furthermore, Germany, cloudy Germany, with skies that are on the average like those of Juneau, Alaska, has 18 times per capita the solar the United States does. There is one building in Munich, Germany, big building, that has solar on the entire roof. substantial installation, 2 megawatts. But that one building in Germany has more solar on it than the entire state of Texas. And it had more solar on it until about a year ago than the entire state of Florida. Before, as Tom mentioned in his introduction, Florida began to wise up, at least Gainesville, Florida did, and has a feed-in tariff and has started to deploy a good deal of solar. What is different about a feed-in tariff, which is a guaranteed 20-year contract for solar at today's cost plus a modest profit that you would have the right to sell to your local utility, and you could be you as an individual with some spare land that you could be used for solar cells, or you could be a small business with a building with a substantial roof. You could be a school, could be a church, could be a farm. This small-scale commercial solar fills a gap helped by what many parts of the world call a feed-in tariff, and we're seeking to call clean programs, but it's the same thing. It's this 20-year fixed contract. We are in a situation whereby, since only 2, and to some extent Oregon, let's say 3 American states, Vermont, Hawaii, Oregon, have adopted feed-in tariffs, clean programs, and a few cities like Gainesville, Ontario in Canada has. Those places are beginning to see growth of deployed solar. But our incentives, as Tom pointed out, that we use today for renewables, and particularly solar, are a confused mishmash that is not working. If it were working, sunny Texas would have more solar than one building in Germany. And Colorado would certainly have more solar than a large number of buildings in Germany, since it and Texas have a lot more sun than Germany does. The thing that is often said by some big utilities and by industry that makes large generating capacity that's only utility scale, that opposes clean programs like the one that's being proposed in Durango. The thing that they often say is it's going to be terribly expensive to subsidize this, and obviously we can't do it. Well, in Gainesville, I think we heard from Tom earlier that it's $1 or $2 a month per household. In Germany, it's about €1 per month per household, which is about $1.50. The idea is that since there is such a small amount of solar to be paid for by all of the ratepayers of electricity at the beginning, and since solar cells are getting more efficient and lower cost all the time, as the amount of solar grows, the cost will be coming down. And today, you see in California, which has the highest electric rates in the country, averaging about 15 cents a kilowatt hour, you are starting to see some photovoltaic cells beginning now to be able to be applied to commercial facilities and to compete in that range, 14, 15, 16 cents a kilowatt hour, with natural gas, a new natural gas plant, which would provide electricity for about 15 cents a kilowatt hour in California. So solar keeps getting better, a little bit like cell phones. If you looked at them in 1990, you'd say, why do I want one of these things? It weighs 6 pounds and has its own suitcase. But you know, a couple of years later, the weight had been cut in half, and a couple of years after that, the weight cut in half again, and so on. Same thing is happening to solar cells. So we are looking at a possibility here, I think, for Durango, and I would love to see it be Colorado as a whole, to be the first to be one major city, and if it could be Colorado, the first really major state that would have access to excellent sunshine, to make it possible for local business people, for local schools, universities, churches, farmers' fields to be the site of small commercial plants of photovoltaics. Usually these would be somewhere between a few hundred kilowatts all the way up to perhaps 20 megawatts, because you could go that high and still stay in the distribution grid. Remember, as I said, being distributed just by the lines on the telephone poles rather than needing to get into the long-range transmission with the big steel towers and the extremely high voltage transformers and the rest. It would be a wonderful thing for the country for Durango to take this kind of a leadership position. Those of us who would love to see us move more and more toward renewables, more and more along with Muir to cleaner energy, more and more along with Gandhi toward energy that is controlled locally, and more along with George S. Patton toward secure energy. We're all noticing and delighting that you're working on this in Durango, and we wish you the very best.